The glass in your hand is slightly too cold. You are standing in a room where the air is thick with the smell of expensive coffee and the low, rhythmic hum of coordinated ambition. You wait for a gap in the conversation, a sliver of silence large enough to accommodate your presence. It appears. You lean forward, the muscles in your throat tightening as you offer a thought, a contribution, a piece of yourself. The person opposite you doesn't blink. They don't even turn their head. Instead, they laugh at a joke made by someone 3 feet to your left, their body language pivoting away from you like a closing door. You are left standing there with a half-finished sentence dying on your lips, a ghost in a tailored suit. No one noticed you spoke. More importantly, no one noticed when you stopped. The social fabric simply re-knit itself over the space you attempted to occupy, leaving no scar, no memory, and no record of your existence. Here is the brutal truth. They did not ignore you because they were being rude, nor did they overlook you because your point lacked merit. This is kinetic erasure. It is the primary biological protocol of the human hierarchy, a survival mechanism where the collective nervous system of a group identifies a low-utility node and preemptively deletes its data input to conserve social bandwidth. The group is a single organism with limited processing power. It cannot afford to track every moving part, so it simply stops seeing the parts that offer no perceived threat or immediate leverage. Everything that follows will reveal why this mechanism runs beneath every social interaction you have ever had, from the playground to the boardroom, regardless of the mask of civility the participants choose to wear. Understanding this is not a gift, it is a weight. What was once invisible will now be permanently visible, a cold architectural reality that renders the comfort of being liked entirely irrelevant. This is the price you are already paying by continuing to watch. The calculation of potential energy. The social hierarchy does not care about your personality. It does not register your intentions, your kindness, or the internal complexity of your soul. To the system, you are a position, a set of coordinates within a field of gravity. Power dynamics operate as a force between these positions, much like the tension in a suspension bridge. When you enter a room, the system immediately begins a subconscious audit of your potential energy. It asks one question: what happens if this person is crossed? If the answer is nothing, the system assigns you a 0 value. You become a pawn in a game where the rules are written in the language of consequence. The machinery of the group moves around you, not out of malice, but out of efficiency. A stone does not hate the water it displaces. The water simply follows the path of least resistance. At the level of a single interaction, this calculation happens in milliseconds. It is visible in the way a person checks their watch while you are speaking, or how they interrupt you to finish a thought that wasn't yours. They are not doing this consciously. Their biological hardware has simply registered that your position lacks the weight to penalize their intrusion. The system is constantly testing for resistance. When it finds none, it expands into the vacuum you have left behind. Every time you allow a slight to pass, every time you laugh at a joke that was designed to diminish you, the system recalibrates your position downward. You are teaching the room exactly how much space you are allowed to take up, and the room will never offer you more than what you have the gravity to hold. The mechanism of restraint is often mistaken for weakness, but in the hierarchy of the biological machine, it is the highest form of implied threat. Most men feel the desperate, scratching need to fill the air with noise, to justify their presence, and to explain their value. This is a signal of high-frequency anxiety. It tells the system that the node is unstable and seeking external validation to maintain its coordinates. Restraint, however, is the act of holding potential energy in reserve. It is the visual evidence of a surplus of power that does not need to be spent. When a man moves with restraint, he is signaling that his internal environment is more significant than the external pressure. The system registers this as a predator at rest, a position that could exert immense force but chooses not to. Consider the physical environment of a high-stakes negotiation. One figure is leaned forward, hands moving rapidly, voice fluctuating with the desperate rhythm of the salesman. The other figure is leaned back, or perhaps perfectly upright, their movements minimal, their gaze fixed and unblinking. The system does not look at the content of their words. It looks at the expenditure of energy. The man who is moving the most is the one who is losing. He is spending his leverage to buy a moment of attention, while the stationary figure is accumulating weight simply by existing in a state of controlled tension. Restraint is the shadow cast by a weapon that hasn't been drawn yet. It creates a psychological gray zone where the other participants must guess at the limits of your capacity. The deeper implication is that the moment you explain yourself, you have been solved. In the social machinery, a solved puzzle is a discarded puzzle. If the group knows exactly how you will react, exactly what you value, and exactly how much pressure it takes to make you fold, you have no further utility as a sovereign entity. You become a known variable, a tool to be used and then put away. Restraint is the preservation of the unknown. It is the refusal to give the system the data it needs to map your boundaries. By withholding the reaction the room expects, you force the system to keep its resources focused on you, trying to calculate a trajectory that you have refused to provide. Irving Goffman observed that social life is a theatrical performance where the front stage is maintained through a rigorous control of impressions to prevent the collapse of the social hierarchy. Two men stand in a lobby waiting for an elevator that is delayed. The first man is checking his phone every 20 seconds, shifting his weight from left to right and sighing audibly to ensure the room knows he is a person of importance who is being inconvenienced. He is a frantic broadcast of low-level status anxiety, begging the environment to acknowledge his schedule. The second man stands perfectly still. He is not looking at his phone. He is not looking at the first man. He is looking at a point on the far wall with the detached intensity of a hawk watching a field. He does not move when the elevator finally pings. He does not rush. He waits for the doors to fully retract before stepping in. By the time they reach the 10th floor, the first man has already unconsciously moved to the corner of the car to give the second man more room. No words were exchanged. No conflict occurred. The hierarchy simply sorted itself based on who was able to endure the silence without dissolving. Your value in the eyes of the system is inversely proportional to your availability. The pressure of the void. Most people believe that power is something you take, an active grab for the microphone. This is the mistake of the pawn. Here is the paradox. The most effective way to exert pressure on a hierarchical system is not through action, but through the strategic creation of a vacuum. Silence is not the absence of communication, it is a weight. It is a biological irritant that the human brain is hardwired to resolve. When you refuse to fill a gap in conversation, you are not merely being quiet at the level of the mechanism, you are withdrawing the oxygen the other person needs to maintain their social mask. The longer the void remains open, the more the other party will begin to fragment, offering up information, concessions, and apologies they never intended to give, simply to stop the crushing pressure of the unanswered. The system registers silence as an information asymmetry. If I am talking and you are listening, I am revealing my position, my biases, and my limits. You, however, are a blank wall. The human mind loathes a lack of data. It will begin to project its own fears and insecurities onto your silence. They will wonder if you are judging them, if you are bored, or if you are planning a move they haven't anticipated. This is the vacuum paradox, a concept we will revisit when we discuss the cost of total transparency. For now, understand that silence is a predator's tool. It forces the other person to work twice as hard to maintain the interaction, effectively draining their social battery while yours remains at full charge. In a professional environment, this looks like the long pause after a proposal is made. Most people, terrified of the tension, will immediately jump in to clarify their point or lower their price the moment they see a furrowed brow. They are leaking leverage because they cannot stand the weight of the silence they created. The sovereign, however, makes the statement and then stops. They let the statement sit in the air like a heavy object. They watch the other person struggle to find a response. The system sees this as a test of nerves. The person who speaks first is the one who has signaled that they are more uncomfortable with the tension than the other. In that moment, the hierarchy crystallizes. The silence has acted as a filter, separating those who can hold their ground from those who must be accommodated. Underneath the surface, the vacuum you create triggers an ancient social anxiety, the fear of being unmapped. When you do not respond with the expected social cues, the polite nod, the mum-he, the reciprocal smile, you are signaling that you are not operating on the same frequency as the rest of the group. This unpredictability creates a low-level consequence anxiety in those around you. They cannot predict your next move because they haven't seen your cards. This is why the most powerful people in any room are often the most difficult to read. They are not hiding their emotions, they have simply stopped using them as currency. They understand that every smile given to a stranger is a small piece of leverage traded away for the comfort of being perceived as nice. Sun Tzu noted that the peak of military strategy is to be formless, for that which has no shape cannot be countered, and that which does not move cannot be caught. You are at a dinner where a colleague is subtly undermining your latest project, framing their criticism as concern. The table goes quiet, waiting for your defense, your justification, your counterattack. You do not give it. You take a slow, deliberate sip of water. You look at them for 3 seconds longer than is comfortable, your expression entirely flat. Then you turn to the person on your right and ask a completely unrelated question about the wine. The critic has been left hanging in the void. Their attack, which required your reaction to have any weight, has now been rendered a clumsy, isolated outburst. They look desperate. You look bored. The room registers that their attempt to move your coordinates failed utterly. You didn't win the argument. You simply refused to acknowledge that an argument was happening. You are not mispositioned because you lack talent. You are mispositioned because you have made yourself too easy to predict. The outcome of your interactions was determined by your willingness to fill the vacuum. You believed that by being helpful and vocal, you were building value. In reality, you were merely providing the system with the map it needed to bypass you. The removal of this burden starts with the realization that you owe the room nothing, not even a reaction. The architecture of prestige is the longer, colder road. While dominance relies on the immediate threat of a collision, prestige is a geological force. It is the gravity generated by a mass that refuses to explain its own density. In the social machinery, prestige is not fame or popularity. It is the system's acknowledgement of a node that produces high-utility output without requesting a reciprocal social payment. Most men operate on a transaction of approval. They do something well, and they immediately look around the room to collect the likes, the nods, or the verbal affirmations. This search for validation is a leak in the system. It signals that the individual's internal battery is low and requires the group to jump-start it. Prestige, however, is a closed circuit. It is the signal of a sovereign who creates, because it is in their nature to create, entirely indifferent to whether the room is watching or not. At the level of a single room, prestige behaves like a localized weather system. When a person of high prestige enters, the conversation doesn't stop out of fear. It shifts its axis to accommodate the new center of gravity. You see this in the way people position their chairs or how they subconsciously lower their volume to hear the quietest person in the circle. The system registers prestige as a scarcity of attention. Because the prestigious node does not spend its attention on trivialities, every millisecond of focus it does grant becomes hyper-valuable. It is the difference between a currency that is hyper-inflated and a gold standard. The man who laughs at every joke is a pawn. He is providing a service for free. The man who only smiles when something is actually funny is a sovereign. His reaction is a rare resource that the group will compete to earn. The psychological phenomenon here is the scarcity of attention. In the biological machinery, attention is the most expensive currency we possess. When you give it away to everyone, you are devaluing your own market cap. The system registers a solved node when that node's attention is predictable and cheap. If you are always available, always responsive, and always agreeable, the system marks you as a fixed asset part of the background architecture. To the mechanism, you are no longer a player. You are the floor Scarcity of attention, however, triggers a search and rescue protocol in others. When you withhold your presence or your feedback, the group begins to analyze what they did wrong to lose access to your signal. They begin to attribute a higher value to you simply because you are not participating in the common exchange of social pleasantries. Ground this in the physical, the office expert who is always willing to help. He is the first to reply to emails, the first to stay late, and the first to offer advice. He believes he is building prestige. In reality, he is building our asterisk liability. The system sees him as a high-functioning tool, not a leader. He is available, which means he is not valuable. Contrast this with the senior partner who is rarely seen, whose door is usually closed, and whose emails consist of 3 words. When that partner finally speaks, the entire department stops to dissect the meaning of those 3 words. The first man is a utility. The second man is an authority. The deeper implication is that prestige is built through the accumulation of work and the withholding of the person. You must become the ghost in the machine, felt everywhere but seen nowhere. This is the birth of the asterisk ghost protocol, TOE, Loop 2. This is the mechanism where your influence continues to operate even when you are physically absent from the room. It is the ultimate evolution of prestige, the transition from being a participant in the hierarchy to becoming the hierarchy itself. 2 men are assigned a high-level project. The first man is a collaborator. He schedules daily meetings, sends checking-in messages, and constantly shares his progress in the group chat. He wants the system to see how hard he is working. The second man disappears. For 2 weeks there is total silence. The team begins to worry. They wonder if he is failing or if he is working on something so advanced they won't understand it. On the final day, the second man delivers a perfect, finished product that exceeds every metric. He does not stay for the praise. He leaves the file on the desk and walks out. The first man is thanked for his effort. The second man is feared for his capability. The first man has made himself replaceable through transparency. The second man has made himself essential through mystery. You are not overlooked because you aren't doing enough. You are overlooked because you are doing too much in front of the wrong eyes. You have made your process a public spectacle, and in doing so, you have stripped away the awe that should accompany your results. You're working for a wage of good job, while the sovereign is building a monument of how did he do that? Effort is the smell of the pawn. Silence is the signature of the sovereign. This is where the system becomes visible. Talk. The cloak of opacity. Opacity is the refusal to be mapped. In any hierarchical system, information is the primary weapon. If the system can predict your reaction, it can control your trajectory. Most men are transparent. Their faces are open books of their anxieties, their desires, and their need for approval. They signal their hand before the cards are even dealt. This is why they are perpetually stuck in mid-level positions. They are too safe to be dangerous and too predictable to be respected. Opacity is not lying. It is the strategic management of information asymmetry. It is the creation of a fog of war around your internal state. When you are opaque, you are a variable that the system cannot solve, and the system is biologically wired to treat an unsolved variable with extreme caution. The mechanism operates on the principle of asterisk information asymmetry. In a negotiation, the person who knows more about the other's limits has the asterisk leverage. When you reveal your emotions, your frustration, your excitement, your desperation, you are handing over your leverage for free. The system registers an emotional reaction as a leak. It tells the group where your pressure points are. If a colleague knows that a certain comment makes you defensive, they now own a piece of your psychological real estate. They can trigger that defense whenever they need to distract you or diminish your position. Opacity is the act of sealing those leaks. It is the maintenance of a flat, consistent exterior that offers the system no data to work with. Philosophically, this aligns with the observations of Machiavelli, who noted that a prince should be a great pretender and dissembler, because men are so simple and so much governed by present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived. The goal is not to be a fake person, but to be a protected one. You are a fortress, and a fortress does not leave its gates open for the sake of authenticity. The hierarchy does not value your authenticity, it values your stability. If you are a different person, every time the wind changes, the system marks you as asterisk liability. If you are the same unmovable wall regardless of the storm, the system marks you as a foundation. Consider the cinematic metaphor of the asterisk cloak. A man in a cloak is not necessarily hiding a weapon, but the mere existence of the cloak forces everyone in the room to consider the possibility of a weapon. Opacity creates a psychological buffer zone. It forces others to move toward you with a level of formality and respect that they do not afford to the transparent man. This is why high-ranking officials and elite operators move with a certain stillness. They are not giving away any free information. Their faces are a blank canvas upon which the world projects its own tension. This is the kinetic erasure, loop 1, in reverse. Instead of being deleted because you are low value, you are being prioritized because your value is unknown and potentially massive. In a social contrast, imagine two executives receiving news of a major budget cut. The first executive immediately begins to argue, his face reddening, his voice rising as he explains why this is a mistake. He is showing the system exactly where it hurts him. He is a solved puzzle. The second executive listens in total silence. He takes a slow note in the leather-bound book. He does not frown. He does not smile. When the meeting ends, he simply stands and walks out. The board of directors spends the next 3 hours wondering what he is planning. Is he going to quit? Is he going to launch a coup? Is he already talking to the competition? They are terrified of him, not because he did anything, but because they have no idea what he will do. His opacity has turned their own imagination into a weapon against them. You have been taught that opening up is a sign of strength. In the cold logic of the hierarchy, opening up is simply providing your enemies with a target. You are not being real when you vent your frustrations. You are being pawn. You are handing over the map to your castle and wondering why the walls are being breached. Position is determined by what you keep behind the wall, not what you hang on the front gate. Go deeper. Top the fault line of unpredictability. Unpredictability is the generator of consequence anxiety. The human brain is a prediction machine. It survives by mapping the environment and anticipating threats. When you behave in a way that is consistently unpredictable, you are effectively glitching the nervous systems of everyone around you. This is not about being crazy or erratic. It is about being ostrich sovereigns over your own patterns. Most men are slaves to their habits. They sit in the same chair, eat the same food, and give the same scripted responses to the same social prompts. They are sold. To the system, they are as predictable as the tide. Unpredictability, however, signals that you are not being controlled by the external environment. It signals that your actions originate from an internal source that the group cannot see. The mechanism here is consequence anxiety. When you are unpredictable, the group cannot gauge the cost of crossing you. If I know that you always react to an insult with a polite smile, I can insult you with impunity. The consequence is 0. But if I don't know how you will react, if you might laugh, might walk away, or might quietly dismantle my entire career 6 months from now, I will treat you with an almost religious level of caution. This is the same logic that governs predator-prey dynamics. A predator will rarely attack an animal that behaves in a way it doesn't understand. The unknown represents a potential cost that the biological machine is unwilling to pay. Robert Greene observed that by tilting the board through sudden, unexplained shifts in behavior, you keep the world in a state of perpetual suspense, which is the ultimate form of leverage. You are forcing everyone else to spend their mental energy trying to decode you, while you spend none on them. This is the part most never reach. They are too afraid of looking weird to ever be powerful. They would rather be a predictable loser than an unpredictable winner. But in the hierarchy, being weird is often just a synonym for being uncontrollable. The system only mocks what it can't dominate. Think of the asterisk fault line, asterisk. Fault line. A mountain looks solid, permanent, and safe until the moment the fault line shifts. That sudden, violent movement reminds everyone that the earth beneath them is not a passive stage, but a living force. Your unpredictability is your fault line. It is the reminder that beneath your social performance lies a capacity for action that the room has not accounted for. You don't need to be loud, you just need to be different when they expect you to be the same. If they expect you to stay, leave. If they expect you to speak, be silent. If they expect you to be angry, be amused. Each time you break the script, you are reclaiming a piece of your sovereignty from the collective. A contrast, a manager is known for being a tough guy. He yells, he demands, he exerts dominance through volume. His team knows exactly how to handle him. They just wait for the storm to pass and then go back to doing what they were doing. He is a solved problem. Contrast him with a manager who is usually calm and supportive, but who occasionally, without warning, makes a decision that is cold, surgical, and final. He fires a high performer for a subtle breach of loyalty. He cancels a major project because he didn't like the energy. His team lives in a state of high alert. They don't know when the other version of him will appear. Because they cannot predict him, they are hyper-vigilant about their own performance. He has achieved through unpredictability what the tough guy could never achieve through noise. This is the price of positional ascent. You must accept that you can no longer be one of the guys. You cannot be a member of the tribe and a ruler of the tribe at the same time. The hierarchy demands isolation. If you are close enough to be hugged, you are close enough to be stabbed. Unpredictability is the moat around your castle. It keeps the masses at a distance where they can see your shadow but never feel your pulse. Most stop here. That is why most remain where they are. Tup. The gravity of absence is the ultimate social signal. Most people spend their lives trying to be present, believing that visibility is the key to influence. They are wrong. Visibility is the key to familiarity, and familiarity is the precursor to contempt. The system does not value what it can always see. It values what it loses. Absence is the act of withdrawing the kinetic erasure, loop 1, and replacing it with a hole in the social fabric. When a high-value node disappears, the system feels the sudden drop in pressure. It is the silence after a loud noise. By removing yourself, you force the group to reckon with your absence, to realize, for the first time, exactly how much weight you were carrying for them. The mechanism of asterisk absence as signal is the completion of the ghost protocol, loop 2. You have spent the previous sections building prestige, maintaining opacity, and practicing restraint. You have become a source of gravity. Now you remove the source. This is not about playing hard to get. It is about the cold reality of resource management. If your presence is a luxury, it must be treated as one. If you are always there, you are a commodity. If you are rarely there, you are an event. The system registers your absence as a decline in its own utility. It will begin to offer you better terms, more respect, and higher status just to bring you back into the orbit. This is where it flips. Most men fear being forgotten. They think that if they aren't at the party or the meeting or the group chat, they will lose their position. The truth is that if your position can be lost simply by you not being there, you never had a position to begin with. You had a seat. A sovereign does not have a seat. They have an asterisk position. A seat is something someone else can sit in. A position is a coordinate in the hierarchy that only you can fill. When you leave, the position remains empty, a constant reminder of the mechanism that is now missing. You are no longer just a person, you are a function that the system can no longer perform. The deeper implication is the asterisk paradox of the shadow, ast. A shadow is only visible because it blocks the light. Your absence is your shadow. It is the visible proof that you were once there and that you were substantial enough to leave a mark. If you disappear and nothing changes, you were never there at all. You were just a ghost of the low-utility variety, a victim of kinetic erasure before you even left. But if you disappear and the room feels wrong, you have achieved the final level of social leverage. You have made your existence a requirement for the group's equilibrium. Milgram's research into authority showed that the physical presence of an authority figure significantly increased the level of obedience. But the inverse is more interesting for the sovereign. True authority is when the obedience continues even after the figure has left the room. That is the ghost protocol. Your mechanism has been so effectively installed in the minds of the others that they self-regulate based on what they think you would do. You have become the architect of their internal hierarchy. A final contrast: two leaders go on a month-long vacation. The first leader leaves a list of instructions, checks in every day, and micromanages from the beach. When he returns, the office is in chaos because no one took responsibility. They were waiting for him to tell them what to do. He is a solved leader. The second leader says nothing. He simply turns off his phone and vanishes. During that month, the team is forced to step up. They find themselves asking, what would he do? They work harder because they fear his return and the audit that will follow. When he returns, he doesn't ask how things went. He simply walks into his office and shuts the door. The team feels a massive wave of relief, not because they missed him, but because the gravity has returned. He didn't just go on vacation. He conducted a month-long test of his own ghost protocol. You were never a solved puzzle to those who truly feared your absence. You were a weight they only realized they were carrying once you set it down. The removal of your presence is the final verdict on your value. If the world doesn't notice you're gone, you were never truly there. If the world stops when you leave, you have finally mastered the machinery. The door is closing. The asterisk kinetic erasure we discussed at the beginning, the mechanism that deletes the invisible, is now a weapon you can choose to wield or a trap you can choose to avoid. You now see the room for what it is, a series of interlocking gears, a biological engine fueled by status anxiety and the fear of the unknown. The revelation is this: you were only invisible because you were trying to be seen. You were seeking the light, and in doing so, you were burned by its transparency. By embracing the cold, the opaque, and the absent, you have moved from being a participant in the hierarchy to being the architect of the shadow. The answering was always there, hidden in plain sight. It is not about being better. It is about being whitier. The person you were before you began this script is now obsolete. That version of you, the one who cared about being rude, the one who felt a sting when they were ignored, the one who believed that hard work was its own reward, is a piece of legacy software. It cannot run on the hardware of the mechanism you now perceive. Do not mourn it. Do not attempt to fix it. Simply let it be overwritten by the cold logic of position. The machine still runs, but the code has changed. You can no longer pretend the gears aren't turning. You can no longer look at a social interaction and see friends or colleagues. You will see only positions, leverage, and the shifting fault lines of power. The masses will continue to move through these hierarchies, as they always have, automatically, mechanically, and entirely blind. They are the background noise of the system. They will talk to fill the silence. They will smile to beg for safety, and they will vanish into the kinetic erasure of their own insignificance. There is no contempt in this observation. There is only distance. The distance between the man who watches the clock and the man who owns the time. You are no longer among them. You are a ghost moving through a world of pawns, and once you have seen the mechanism, you can never unsee it. Aspirine. This is not a community. This is not a support group. This is access to the blueprint of the machinery you inhabit. Those who remain are not followers. They are the few who have realized that the comfort of the crowd is the first step toward the erasure of the self. You are here because you can no longer tolerate the lie of equality. You are here because you know that in every room, someone is the hammer and someone is the nail, and you have finally decided which one you are. The verdict has already been delivered. The room is empty. Only the mechanism remains.